back at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. It's been running good here the first two vlogs, so third time's a charm. Try to spin it up, win it up again. Home base, home court. This is where I like to play. This is where I run good, and gonna try to, have another profitable session. I have some big news at the end of this vlog, by the way. So you guys, hope you stick around so you can hear it. Very excited about that news. Yeah, man, I'm just here, just hoping to hit some big hands, win some nice pots. As usual, try to grind it out. I'm hoping to put out this content soon. I'm gonna try to be putting out content more often, hopefully. It's hard, but I'm new to video editing, but I'm gonna try my best to try to, put out the content for you guys, since you guys have been liking and subscribing. Very good. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe. So I want to help you guys, to see more content that I put out for you guys. Walking around, as you guys can see. Probably gonna hop in the 2-5 game. I saw there was a decent amount of tables. I think it was 4 or 5, not quite sure. I'm telling you, these slot machines get bigger and bigger. One of these days it's gonna be like a movie theater where there's gonna be rows and rows behind the slot machines. It's insane. Look at the seat. Kind of dark, you can't see it, but a family of 4 can fit on it. I mean, how many people can press one button? I don't know. Whatever. Thinking about it. Greasy but delicious. Yeah, I think I'll hold off. I don't want to play a poker game feeling too full, too bloated. I got a buddy of mine who told me that they have the best old fashions here in this bar. So one of these days, I think I'm gonna check it out after maybe a winning session, maybe a losing session. That may be an even better time to have one of those old fashions. But let's hit up the tables. I've been talking too much. While I wait to play the 2-5 game, I just wanted to let you guys know some tips, some things that, for a beginner, may not be so obvious, but as you play over the years, you realize there's a lot of mistakes you end up making while you play. First tip that I always like to say is don't chase your losses. This game is always here. There's always a game going on. There's always multiple tables. The game will be here tomorrow. If the game is good, it doesn't mean don't stay. If there's a lot of weak players, you definitely want to capitalize. But in most scenarios, trying to chase your losses and trying to make the money back quick isn't a good thing to do. So, tip number 2. Tip number 2 that I always suggest is don't just sit at your table and wait if the table's bad and hope to get lucky or catch some cards. It's always good to have game selection and table selection. A lot of times you'll sit there and hours will pass and there's no action, and really you're just wasting time if there's a better game. So it's always good to walk around first, see what games are going on, what players are there. If you play regularly, I would say the players that are action players and the players who are regulars and pros. So that's the second tip, is always be aware. You don't like your table, get up. You don't like your seat, switch seats. It's a second thing that I recommend people always to do as far as game selection and table selection. The last and final tip number 3. Tip number 3 is to, what the hell was tip number 3? Epic fail, give me a second. Tip number 3, tip number 3, tip number 3. Oh yes, no, I forgot. Tip number 3, tip number 3. This is terrible for vlogging. Tip number 3, tip number 3. Okay, I need to stop at some point. Tip number 3, tip number 3. Money. That took way too long. Okay, money is very important. When you're playing poker, you cannot be thinking of money. If you are putting your chips on the table, you cannot be putting your last $200. I know it's easy to say, I know there's gambling addictions, I get it. But if you're putting your money on the table and you're playing poker, not roulette or craps or any of those games, The point is to make the right decision in every pot that you're possibly in, and try to make the correct decision, not based on money. When I first started playing, I used to be worried. I'm like, oh, but it's my last $200 and I don't want to be wrong and I don't want to lose. Where now I've learned over the years, I'm making calls that I normally wouldn't have made because I was scared with the money, based on my reads or based on the type of player I'm playing. So that's an important thing to do. You need to separate money with making the right decision when you're at the poker table. And yeah, that's just tip number 3. And I know many players will know this, but this is more for like any beginners that are watching the blog. I just wanted to, give some helpful advice, and if it helps one person, good. If it helps 20, good. And if it helps nobody, well, you're watching, so thank you very much for that. All right, guys, hopefully they call my name soon to play this 2-5 game. So I had an interesting session, had a lot of playable hands, not necessarily monster hands. I mean, I did have some good hands, but a lot of pots that I played multi-way or I got involved in with some interesting flops and turns. I want to go over hand number 1. In the first hand, I pick up pocket 3s in the big blind. Player in mid position makes it 25. The cutoff calls, the small blind calls, and I also make the call with my pocket 3s. Going to a flop, the pot's 105, the flop comes ace-6-4, 2 hearts, checks around to me, I check around as well. Turn comes another 6, a 6 of clubs, and pairs the board, checks around to me. I decide that I may take a stab, but I decide to just check, keep the pot intact, not try to inflate the pot and maybe get in a little bit of trouble. The river comes and it's a 7 of clubs. The player who bet pre-flop makes it $25. Now, this seems like a pot he's trying to steal based on his bet. It's a very small bet. I put him on a pair maybe. I don't put him on the ace I was on the flop or the 2 6s that are on the board for trip 6s. So I decided to make a creative play because I don't think I can win the pot by calling. I end up making a super value bet of $70. I make it $70 because I think if I overbet it, it may look like a bluff, and if he has a high pair like 10s or 9s, he may end up calling off thinking I'm bluffing. But by betting 70, the chances are I flopped a set, or I have an ace and I just slow played it. The ace probably is unlikely, but I decided to make it 70, and after a while he folds his hand face up and he has pocket queens, and I take the pot down, and I'm very excited about that. I made a play that normally I wouldn't make, but based on the player who was kind of opening a lot, it turned out to be a good play. In this next hand, a player in this 2-5 game, mind you, a 2-5 game, an early position makes it $50. That's a huge bet pre-flop. $50 when there's only $7 in the pot. All right, buddy. Then later on, the player right after him, next to act, goes all in for 95. It folds around to me in the small blind, and I look down and I have ace queen of hearts. So there's been a bet, an all in, and it's on me. I decide to make it $200 as I want to basically see all 5 cards. I like my hand. The player who originally bet 50 pre-flop only has 70 more in his stack. I don't imagine him folding. So I basically 4-bet this hand to $200. The early position player throws in his remaining $70 in chips. So it's a 3-way all in. I got both players covered. So the flop comes and it's ace, 4, deuce, all diamonds. The turn is a 7 of spades. The river is a jack of spades. So I flop top pair, very good kicker. I'm happy with that board. I turn over ace queen and we lose. The guy who bet 50 pre-flop has ace queen, ace king, and the other player mucks. So we're out kicked. It was a strange bet, but I guess, it's one of those hands where I'm never folding anyway. look down on the cutoff and I see myself with 9-6 of clubs. There's a straddle on for 10. Player in middle position makes it $35. There's a couple callers and it's on me. Now this is a hand I would typically fold, but I decided to get a little crazy, a little, I don't know, just normally please fold this hand. But the table was a little bit wild, so I decided to make a call to see what would develop on the flop. 9-6 of clubs is a hand where I am suited. There's straight draws. I decided just to play. Don't ask me why. Every now and then I have a feeling a certain hand. This is going to be a hand where I do not suggest for you to play, but I play it otherwise. And the big blind also comes along, so we go 5 ways at the flop. The flop is 10 of hearts, 9 of hearts, 5 of spades. The flop brings me middle pair. It checks around. All 5 players check, so we get to go to the turn. The turn is the 2 of clubs, and with that card, it checks to me in the cutoff, and at this point, I don't think anybody has a 10 or they would have bet. So I'm going to put a bet in to see where I'm at. There was also a flush draw on the flop, which nobody seemed to take a stab at, and also a straight draw, because 10-9 was on the board, so somebody could have a queen-jack. Regardless, I put out a bet of $100, and it folds around, and I take the pot down. So my craziness paid off, but I don't suggest this. Again, kids, don't try this at home. I pick up 10-9 offsuit on the button, and under the gun makes it $15. Small bet for a 2-5 table. He gets 4 callers. I make the call on the button with a hand that plays well multi-way. The flop comes 8 of clubs, 7 of clubs, 4 of diamonds. So I end up flopping an open-ended straight draw, which is a good flop for my hand. And the under the gun player who had bet 25 pre-flop makes it 25. Folds around to me, and I make the easy call. The turn comes and bingo, the 6 of spades. I end up picking up my straight. I turn it, great card for me. It doesn't bring the flush, so an even better card. And he ends up making it $75. Now, I have a decision here. I've got the nuts at this point in time. He's bet the flop, he's bet the turn. He seems to have a very strong hand. Now, at this point, I don't want to lose him by raising. I wasn't really sure what to do here, to be honest. I didn't want to lose him, and he may do a third bet on the river, possibly bluffing, possibly with a good hand. So I decided to just, play coy and just make the call for $75 and see if he would fire at the river again. The river comes, and it's the Ace of Hearts. Pretty safe card. Did bring the flush in, though. But he checks. So at this point, I know I'm good. I don't think he would at that point slow down when he hits his flush, because there's always a chance I could check back. So I end up throwing a bet out there of $200. He ponders for a long time. He thinks about it forever. He's looking at me. He thinks I'm bluffing, and he ends up mucking his hand, and he claims he had 8-6, so which means he turned 2 pair and had a gut shot and top pair on the flop, which does make sense. And I end up scooping that nice pot with my 9-10, turning to straight. Always a good result when we can take down a pot with a straight on the turn, obviously. And bloopers from my vlog. I said this last hand that it brought a flush on the river with the Ace of Hearts. That was the only heart on the board, so discount what I said there. It was not a flush that came, but all the action and everything stays the same. In this next hand, I pick up those Cowboys pocket kings. Happy about that. The button, there's a straddle of 10. The big blind calls a 10. The under the gun calls a 10. And in the cutoff, I'm going to always come in for a raise here. I make it $45. And the first button player folds, the big blind folds, and the under the gun player calls the 45. Flop comes, and pretty good flop. King 6-3, so rainbow. I flop top set. He bets 45. The choice is clear here. I am not going to raise. I am not going to fold. I am smooth calling on a pretty dry flop with essentially, it is a nuts, but I mean, there is pretty much no turn card. based on his call of my $45 pre-flop that I think could really hurt me. The turn comes and it's a 2 of diamonds. He bets $100 and he only has 120 in his stack. I don't understand why he just doesn't go all in. I don't know why he would just bet 100, but you bet 100, I instantly just say all in because I know he's not folding for 20, or is he? And he puts in his chips. The river is a 3, full house, easy peasy. Turn it over, he folds, and we scoop the pot.
Raise 20.
In my favorite hand of the night, I pick up King Jack of Spades in the small blind. The player under the gun makes it 20. This player has been a complete jerk. I'm going to refer to him as jerk the rest of the hand. He's been berating other players. He's been complaining. He's been throwing his cards at the dealer. He's been warned. He's just been a jerk. So he bets 20 and 2 players in middle position call. And in my small blind hand of King Jack of Spades, I don't like to play out of position on the flop and I want to raise this jerk. So I end up making it $95 to be able to see if I can get everyone to fold and make the jerk fold. I will continue to say jerk. The jerk calls for 95 and the other 2 players fold. So we go heads up to the flop and the flop is King of Hearts, 10 of Hearts, 8 of Diamonds. So it's a pretty wet board with straight draws and flush draws. I end up checking and he ends up making a bet of $125. I think about it and I flop top pair. He's been an aggressive player. He could be betting with anything here. So I want to see what develops on the turn, seeing as I have top pair. So I call. The turn comes and I feel pretty good about the turn. The turn is another king. So at this point I have trip kings and the likelihood of him having ace king now is very unlikely as there's only 1 king left in the deck. So how I talked about in other episodes about blockers, I have a king here, so the odds of him having a king with 2 on the board and the 1 in my hand are very unlikely. I end up checking to him and he shoves all in. The jerk shoves all in. And I think about it for a little bit. I have trip kings. If he happens to flop a set and turn to bolt, you know, good job, jerk. I end up making the call. Sorry, it's funny. I end up making the call after thinking about it for a little bit. I had 310 in my stack. I end up making the call and the river comes and it's a 4 of hearts. Does bring the flush. He goes, you're good, you win, and he mucks his cards. So I end up winning with trip kings and the jerk goes down. So regarding that exciting news I promised you guys at the beginning of the episode, for the first time in my poker playing career, I will be going to the World Series of Poker. You heard it here first. The WSOP, Phil is going, aka Phil, aka, I'm not aka Felipe Casanova, that is my name. I will be going to the World Series of Poker to win all the money, all the bracelets, cash games, tournaments. I am bringing this news to the vlog. Hopefully I run good. Wish me luck. And to celebrate, having a cold one. This is momentous news. A little bit of Hogarden. Let's get all the money out there in Vegas.